Trafford is off to the races. Trafford into the box. He takes a shot, and Charlie Trafford has picked it runs on one and more. Posted in. Gabby Antonoro makes it 2-0. And they do go to the top of the table.
Well, that was funky.
Yeah. I don't know if we were in like a spy movie or what was going on there. I felt like I was dipping below some lasers.
Yeah, I didn't feel like I should be sitting down though. It felt like it felt a little bit too much energy for that. Anyway, Canadian Premier League Newsroom, presented by Volkswagen. Charlie O'Connor-Clarke with Mitchell Tierney, here to recap another weekend, week 4, that's right, yeah, in the CPL in 2024. We had 3 games. We did not have 4 games this week. Obviously, a couple of schedule changes mean that that the Forge and Halifax game will not be tomorrow, but we will get to what is tomorrow on Tuesday later in this show when we talk about the Canadian Championship. But we're going to start, as we always do, by running through the weekend of Canadian Premier League games that we just saw, beginning, obviously, on Friday night, where Cavalry had their first win of the 2024 season, much needed, 3-1 result over Vancouver FC, followed on Saturday by Pacific taking a 2-0 win to York United at their home, and again remaining undefeated and perfect defensively, which we will definitely have to talk about pretty soon. And then the weekend wrapping up with Atletico Ottawa, again another team that's remaining undefeated to start 2024. They got past Valour for the second time in just a few days with that 2-0 win, and that is also a game that we will have plenty to talk about. But let's start out in Calgary, Mitchell, where things, I don't think there'd been much concern in Calgary to begin the year, but they're playing Vancouver FC here for the second time in a week or so after they beat them in a Canadian Championship. And I think this is a game that they really needed, right? They'd had some very strong performances in their first few league games, but they hadn't quite got that win yet. And at the end of the day, their first win of the campaign comes earlier than it did last year, where they still won the league by 13 points. So, just Mitch, what did you make of Cavalry, and maybe how that maybe effectiveness and efficiency did seem to finally show up in the final third for them?
Yeah, I think regardless of who you are, the longer you go without winning a match, like it starts to become a storyline. So, finally getting their first win in the CPL of the 2024 season was so incredibly important. And yeah, this was a match where finally things started to click a little bit offensively. I mean, the first goal they score is basically a carbon copy of the one that they scored to beat Vancouver in the Canadian Championship, with Fraser Aird clipping in a lovely ball, and then Tobias Warshevsky getting on the end of it. This one a little bit cleaner as it goes directly to him, but nevertheless, and I think this was a bit of a breakout performance from Warshevsky. I mean, you're seeing him get 2 goals, smash in a penalty. He had a spinning back heel that would have been a CPL goal of the year so far if he had been able to finish it. So you really like that. You really like to see, the biggest question mark really with their attack was who's going to be the number 9, who's going to kind of be the focal point of that attack. And Warshevsky really answering it in this match. And then you've got so many other guys who haven't really hit their stride yet offensively. So there's more to come from this Cavalry side for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we know what Toby Warshevsky has in his locker, and it might be taking him just a few weeks to maybe get that get fully confident and get fully comfortable in that Cavalry side, especially coming into a team where so many guys are returning from the year before. It can sometimes be a little bit tough to fit in immediately, but we know how good he is. Charlie Trafford also has decided very late in his career, I think, to make a choice like this, that he's Leo Messi now. And he's just going to do stuff like that, where he dribbles basically all the way from midfield into the box and scores. not something that I necessarily knew that he was able to do, and maybe not necessarily something that he would have told you was one of his key skills. But I think he was pretty funny about it after the game. So let's hear what he had to say.
Can't remember it. I blacked out, I think. Um, no, people thought it was going to take me longer than Mason to score, and I couldn't let that happen, you know. So, no, I'm trying to, again, add it to my game a little bit, more runs forward. I know I can do the defensive side and help protect the team, and it's always nice to go and do that. And I've been getting a bit of stick not scoring yet here, so I have to start running forward. And, yeah, just, again, I combine with Sergio well and break and, yeah, just go and get it. Space just kept opening up. I don't think their team knew why I was up there, so it just, yeah, I don't know. I enjoyed it, I'm not going to lie, but I don't know what was happening, so.
You look like a young Charlie Trafford on that goal. That was the biggest thing.
I feel it until after the goal. I was a bit tired after that celebration.
Long way to run. It's a long way to run. I love those ones where you just kind of like, I mean, I say it as if I've ever experienced it. I obviously haven't, but it's like when you're just going forward with the ball and you're kind of looking for a pass and you just realize that nobody's closing you down. You can just keep going.
Yeah.
You're like, okay, sure, I'll just keep going, man. And then it ends up in the back of the net. So good for Charlie Trafford. Good for Cavalry.
No cartwheel, Charlie. What the heck?
No cartwheel, man. We gotta get him on that. That was last year. I think I don't think he's the kind of guy that plans his own goal celebrations because I'm sorry, Charlie, but that doesn't necessarily happen as often as someone who might be planning out their goal celebrations every week. But you know what? If this is going to be a regular occurrence, then we'll see if there's anything a little bit more signature coming up with him. Anyway, good for Cavalry, who definitely staying in a pretty good position to start the season with this win. Obviously, a big week for them coming up when they take on the Whitecaps on Tuesday night. But speaking of teams in Vancouver, they were playing one in this game. Mitchell, it was a good start to the season for them, obviously with those 2 wins in a row at home. But since they've gone on the road, they've struggled a little bit more, I think. What did you notice about them in this match?
Well, that Charlie Trafford goal is maybe a good, jumping off point because defensively it's been a struggle again for Vancouver FC ever since they kind of left the nest, left away from home, and honestly since Caden Chung went down. I think that was a significant issue last year not having him, but they haven't really been able to figure out that right side of defense. In fact, they just completely removed it to start the match and started with a back 3, and that didn't work at all. Cavalry really exposed that far side. I mean, Fraser Airds had a fantastic start to the season, and they just played him in on multiple occasions down that side. I think he had 10 crosses. And most of those came through the first half when they didn't really have anyone playing there. So, yeah, I think that's a massive concern for Vancouver, and I think this is a good time for them to maybe get a little bit of time off, which they have. They don't play again until I believe next Sunday at home against Atletico Ottawa. So, they need to just settle things down a little bit, get back to training, get back to that defensive cohesion after back-to-back games, allowing 3 goals. Evidently, that's not a recipe for success. That was their biggest issue last season as well. So, yeah, I think it's just time to be like, okay, we're still in a decent position. I believe they're in 4th right now in the table. They're still in an okay spot, but if they don't use this time to correct things, you could see it going off the road pretty quickly here for them.
Yeah, they are in 4th, 1 point ahead of Cavalry actually, which that's things are getting tight. We're starting to see a little bit more of teams falling into place in the table. We are only 4 weeks in though. Also, quick shout out in this game to Grady McDonald making his debut for Vancouver FC. Irish international, future Irish World Cup star, Grady McDonald.
Play for Canada, Grady.
No comment. He comes in, makes his debut at the age of just 16, and I don't think looked out of place. And Vancouver in general were better in the second half as well, which I think is generally a positive. But we will watch them next weekend and see if they can respond. Again, let's move on from this game now a little bit further west to Pacific FC on Saturday night, beating York United 2-0. I had to catch up on this game after it was on live. I watched it yesterday morning because I
What was that,
was
Charlie?
busy having several mental breakdowns on Saturday night watching watching the CBC and whatever they were showing that night. Anyway, Pacific 2, York United 0. Rion Moore getting on the board. I guess for the second time in a week, but his first in the CPL with this club. Pacific. For me, part of the story is that they're 4 games in, they still haven't conceded a goal in Canadian Premier League action. They obviously did to TSS Rovers midweek in that Can-Champ game that went to penalties. But Mitchell, I think another thing that we noticed about this team is that they're looking a little bit sharper and more dangerous in attack, right?
Yeah, especially during that first half. And that's something that, James Merriman and the coaching staff have been key on. Like, they're very happy with the defensive identity of the team so far. And why wouldn't they be? I mean,
Yeah.
it's been near perfect so far this season. But at the same time, Pacific FC really has an identity for this attacking flair and this, fun football that they play with the ball, essentially, and especially during the first half in this match. I mean, that's the closest we've seen to it all season. And in fact, that was an absolutely dominant performance in the first half. They could have easily had a few more goals than they had. Really like the role that Stephen Yates is playing this season in terms of quickly connecting a lot of those attackers. And yeah, I mean, there's a lot of positives to take away from this match. How they closed it out as well is solid for them. So there's a lot to like for Pacific early on in this season.
Yeah, I think so too. I mean, it's hard to really complain when you've got 3 wins and a draw from 4 games and have not conceded a goal. Um, I, again, like Pacific tweeted at me asking what the record is for most clean sheets in a row in the Canadian Premier League. I have not yet been able to dig that one up. Um, I'm gonna work on it. I'm gonna try and find out, but I do have a strong suspicion that this might be a record.
I
I
believe
can't
they have
remember.
it. Yeah,
I
I think
can't remember a
OneSoccer
team going
confirmed.
4 games in a row. Yeah, I can't remember a team going 4 games in a row without conceding a goal. I feel like it would be memorable if it had happened. Anyway, Pacific, very very impressive. They obviously have moved on to the Canadian Championship as well. They have to play Ottawa this week, which is a long trip out east, but they're very confident at the moment. One more last word on the way that the defense is playing. Ali and Dom, who has come in from France and has a big role to fill in this team. We've spoken about it before on this podcast, and replacing Amir Didic and playing there next to Thomas Meyer-Jaguar has looked amazing, I think, so far. Playing whether he's playing as a center back, playing a little bit further out left. In this game, he's in the middle with Eric Lajeunesse playing a left back. But he has been kind of the technical but also kind of leader that this team is needing in that back line. So let's hear what he had to say, because I believe he also was quite full of confidence after another clean sheet for those guys.
Yeah, I'm very happy. It's the fourth time we don't concede goal. Yeah, we train a lot at the training with Armando who care about this. So yeah, after with the whole team we practice, and after when we come at the game we have a lot of confidence because they trust us. Everybody trusts everybody. So after it's like that. If someone do a mistakes, we cover him, and it's like that.
Everybody trusts each other. And also quick shout out to Pacific. 4 clean sheets to start the season. Emil Gazdov has 3 of them now, which is very good for that young man's confidence, especially considering the maybe struggles he had at times last year, especially early in the season as a young keeper, where there were some rough patches and maybe some questions around whether he should be the guy for Pacific in goal. But has not put a foot wrong for this team in the 3 games he's played in the CPL. Obviously missing the one because he was sick. So shout out Emil Gazdov. Let's go on to York quickly though, because they were very good at home against Vancouver. They were not maybe so good in the first half here. Before we kind of break them down, let's hear what Martin Nash had to say, because I believe that he would agree on their first half and maybe not being quite what he was looking for.
Yeah, I mean, it was a terribly slow start. We lost every 50-50, every challenge first half. And I warned him about it for the game, tried to get him up for it, and for whatever reason, it's like we hadn't got off the plane yet. And then second half, we reacted. I thought Baldy came in and was fantastic in midfield. Created a few chances to get us back in the game, and just didn't take any of them. And they caught us late on a counter, and the game was kind of done at that stage.
Yeah, a tough night for York. A bit concerning that Juan Cordova is not in the side again after starting the week before and being arguably, I guess their second best player behind Brian Wright. Mitchell, what did you make of York, and why do you think they did, they struggled so much in the first half?
Well, I think the big issue is you could have played that clip from Martin Nash for like 10 of the last 17 matches that they've played. I think it's like two games in their last 17 in all competitions that they've scored a first half goal. That's not a recipe for success, especially in the Canadian Premier League, where so many teams are just comfortable sitting back once they have a lead and killing off matches. Like, there's so many teams that are incredibly good at that. So if you're going to, offer clubs the opportunity to do that, especially a Pacific side who hasn't allowed a goal yet this season in CPL play, like it's just it's a disastrous opportunity. One thing I think they've had an issue at, especially early on in matches, is getting Mo Babouli involved enough. Is something else Martin Nash talked about. Getting him in those pockets of space where he can really influence a match. And this is their key guy. This is the player that can break open games with one pass. And we almost saw that at times during this game, but they haven't been, again, like Martin Nash said, they hadn't been finishing those opportunities. So. Mm-hmm. Yeah, if you're York, it's another one, another club that has to take a good look in the mirror as they return home this week, and they've got Valour on Friday, and that it's never must win this early in the season, but that's a game where they're really going to want to pick up all 3 points in that match and kind of turn things around here.
Yeah, absolutely, and I do like that they're maybe playing around with Babouli's role a little bit. He's gone out wide a few times in the last couple of games after being pretty much nailed into that number 10 spot last year, but again, a player that they want on the ball more. Anyway, moving on from York United and this game to our third and final match of week four. Yep. Again, numbers on the fly here. Atletico Ottawa 2, Valour 0. Obviously we don't do a midweek wrap-up podcast, but I think everybody knows what happened on Wednesday night. Atletico Ottawa beating Valour 7-0 in the Canadian Championship, club record, tournament record, all around bad day at the office for Valour FC, who go out of the Canadian Championship in pretty crushing fashion. But they got a chance to play Atletico Ottawa on the same turf again just a few days later, and maybe try and pick up a little bit of redemption or revenge or whatever you want to call it. Phil Dos Santos was looking for a response and a reaction to that loss, and I don't think they really got it. Valour again making the same kind of mistakes and lapses of concentration, just missing focus in the first half that gives Atletico Ottawa those 2 goals. And while you'd say that Valour were better in the second half, certainly, they kind of stopped Atletico Ottawa from being able to threaten them anymore. At that point, Ottawa were pretty comfortable and were kind of in energy conservation mode because that game felt pretty much done at that point. Mitchell, do you agree? What did you make of this? And if you're Phil Dos Santos, how disappointed are you with the way that this game started after what happened last time?
Oh, I think you're immensely disappointed. Like, the thing about Valour last season is obviously they finished bottom of the table, but they were in most of the matches they played. I think they only had 6 multi-goal losses, and they already have 3 to start this season. So, when you are looking for a response to a game where you've been yelled like that, and you come out and give up 2 bad goals that early in the game, like, credit to them for not making it worse, but the damage was already really done at that point. You didn't really feel like Valour were going to find a way back into the match, and it really is another kind of disappointing performance from them to start what's been a down year really to start.
Yeah, you really wanted more from Valour. I mean, especially just that, the first game against Ottawa, the 7-0, they were conceding goals on individual mistakes, just set pieces, really, really bad marking on set pieces, just players getting lost and defenders not picking up their man or not tracking their man or not being aware of surroundings. And that's what happened again in the first half here. The first one is a really, really unnecessary foul from Noah Verhoeven, that leads to the free kick. And then, it's whipped in and nobody's picking up Ruben Del Campo, who kind of just side foots it through traffic and it finds the net. So it's not really, it's not really a completely unstoppable moment where he just manages to find that space on a set piece where you're already like, you should be kind of in position and aware of surroundings and where especially the most dangerous attacking players are on the pitch. And then the second one, again, Gabriel Antonoro just finds his way into the box and nobody seems to really notice him. He kind of gets free of Zach Secunda and he just brings down the cross and scores. And then, Zach Secunda gets taken out of the game immediately after. Phil DeSantis says a tactical thing to try and make better use of Dante Campbell on his right side. But again, it's never a moment that you want as a player when you're beaten for a goal and then immediately get taken off the pitch. This is making me sad though, so we're gonna hear from Phil DeSantis. We're gonna put a bow on this Valour performance, and we're gonna get to more positive things and talk about Atletico Ottawa. So let's give the final word on Valour FC and this fourth consecutive loss to start the 2024 season. Well, fifth in all competitions. Let's give the final word to Phil DeSantis.
Let me start by saying that what the guys had to do today, coming in after what happened on Wednesday, is extremely difficult. We had 2 days where we couldn't train, and it's a big hit for a team to take. It's a big hit for all of us emotionally, and that wears you out. So what I asked the guys is that we absolutely needed to be better pros, to fight, to show a little bit and definitely more responsibility in the way that we play and we approach the game. I think that today the team displayed a little bit of what we could be.
Yeah, and Phil did go on for about another 2 minutes there. But yeah, it's frustrating. Anyway, positivity. Let's go to Atletico Ottawa. Let's start with Ruben Del Campo, who didn't score in his, I think, 16 games to begin life at Atletico Ottawa in 2023. He came in last year at the same time as Alberto Zapater. Wasn't quite as marquee a name, or maybe flew a little bit under the radar as the secondary signing of those two, but still, has a good pedigree playing at some pretty big clubs in Spain. He's played in the Portuguese top flight. He was in the Atletico Madrid academy. This year, not the starting center forward to start the year. That was Sam Salter, but he gets his opportunity last weekend in in Halifax. Scores. Starts again against Valour on Wednesday. Scores twice. Starts here against Valour. Scores again. So it's 4 goals in 3 games for Ruben Del Campo. Mitchell, Atletico Ottawa have been crying out for somebody to put the ball in the net from a center forward position for a while, because you can put all of the creative players in the world on the pitch. You can put Ollie Bassett, you can put Manny Aparicio, Balu Tabla, Mateo De Brian. You can put them all out there, but you can't ask those guys to be your main goal scorers if you want to be an attack-minded team that scores a lot of goals. How big a deal could it be for Atletico Ottawa if Ruben Del Campo is turning into the reliable, consistent finisher that they've been looking for?
Oh, huge. I mean, it's something we talked about with Cavalry and how they won the league last season. Having Meyer Bevan to score, those, they look simple, but you have to be in those positions. And, that's something that I've liked about Del Campo so far this year, is he's been in those spots to they look like tap-ins, but they're still goals that obviously matter. There has to be someone in those spots to put the ball in the back of the net, and he showed good energy as well. There's a play I liked where he loses the ball and rushes back and does commit a foul, but he's showing that tenacity. So yeah, you have to love the way he's leading the line. You have to love that Gabby Antonoro scores as well. A player who's going to be important for them this year in terms of covering those U21 minutes. He was really, really good, I thought, in this game, and has shown good off the bench when they've needed him as well. And that's another thing. So you like that, again, right back, Chris Trodax looked great.
Yeah.
Center forward, Del Campo's looked really good. U21 minutes, Gabby Antonoro looks like you answer. The questions that were coming into the season for Atletico Ottawa in between all these marquee signings are starting to answer themselves. And it's a long season, but those are positives to start the year.
Absolutely. Absolutely, they are. All right. Before we get a little bit deeper into Atletico Ottawa and what we're liking about them, let's just go back one more time to TD Place and hear what Carlos Gonzalez had to say about Ruben Del Campo and his last few games.
Yeah, he's in a sweet moment. He's in a sweet moment. So happy for him. I think that he has been working for a long time, very hard. He deserved this moment that he's living. But at the end of the day, we still have a long season, and I expect a lot from him, and I expect a lot from Samuel Salter. That I think that is a great player that is working very hard, and he's also hiding that opportunity that probably is going to come soon also. So the important part is that in all the positions, the players understand that there is healthy competitiveness between them, and this, at the end of the day, is better for them and better for the team.
Absolutely. The competition is good, and I'm sure Sam Salter will get his opportunity as well, but you can't take Del Campo out of that side at the moment. One thing that I've liked about Atletico Ottawa in the past week or so is we've seen a ruthless version of them. And we saw them on Wednesday when they smelled blood in the water, and they basically said, we're going to score as many goals as we possibly can. We're going to prove to the rest of the Canadian Premier League that we are a team that can do that this year, that we can be that dangerous. We can score this many goals. We can put the foot down. And then this week, played a lot of games in a short stretch, have another midweek game coming up. Very comfortable in the second half, I think, where they feel like they do feel like they've won that game. They've got the 2-goal lead, and they don't feel particularly threatened, and they can kind of suck the life out of the game as maybe some Atletico Ottawa teams of old were able to do. So they've still got both of those sides to them, which is something that I've really liked, right, Mitch?
Yeah, you don't score 7 if you don't have that internal competition. And, the Salter Del Campo is just one example of all over the pitch. Really, they've got these internal competitions all the way back to in goal between Yesley and Ingham. I don't think that's helping their goal scoring so much so far this season, but it's certainly helpful in terms of the mentality of the side. So definitely a positive.
Yeah, definitely positive. All right, let's wrap up that CPL weekend. We're going to talk about the Canadian Championship here in a sec, but just very quickly, let's just run down kind of where the table is as it stands at the moment, because Atletico Ottawa and Pacific FC level on 10 points at the top. I think Atletico Ottawa have a more goals scored. I think that's the tiebreaker that's putting them on top here. Forge obviously with 9 points just behind Vancouver and Cavalry, as we mentioned earlier, 4th and 5th with 6 and 5 points respectively. York have the 3 points from just that one win they've got, and then unfortunately Halifax and Valour still looking for their first points of the 2024 Canadian Premier League season. They will have opportunities to get those soon. Valour sooner than Halifax, though, because they're playing York United on Friday. Anyway, before we can get to that, though, the Canadian Championship quarterfinals kick off this week. Kick off Tuesday morning, actually, Mitchell, where we are going to be in Hamilton for the school day game when Forge FC take on CF Montreal. This is going to be the 4th time Forge have played Montreal in this competition. They are looking for that first win. They haven't got as close as they did the first time they played them. That was that 11-round penalty shootout in 2021 at Tim Hortons Field. Since then, they've been to Stade Saputo twice, not scored a goal, lost 5-0 total over those 2 games. Mitch, do you think that this is Forge's best opportunity, given that it's 2 legs, given that they're in such good form to start the season.
Yeah, I think the form is the big thing. I mean, you look at how they were coming in those other 3 times, and they're coming off the crazy fixture schedule in 2021. They just lost to Santos in CONCACAF League in the first leg there. They'd obviously turned that around, but afterwards, they 2-4 in 2022, like 2 wins in 4 in 2022. Last year,
Mhm.
they made me sit through that 0-0 with Vancouver, which is 90 minutes of my life I'll never get back. So I just think the momentum of having all of those results and performances coming into this game is so important for them.
Mhm.
And yeah, the 2 legs. I mean, they have an opportunity here to 11 a.m. is a weird time, right? They're going
Yeah.
to be more comfortable. They're going to be more comfortable at home. This is around when they train, usually, kind of maybe a little bit later, but they'll just be able to use that to their advantage more. Whereas it's a little bit odd for Montreal. So I like those kind of aspects coming into the match.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. It's a interesting one. 11 a.m. I think we've heard from a lot of CF Montreal players have been saying recently how they don't think they've played a game at that time in the morning since they were like U13s, U14s maybe.
Mhm.
But it should be fun. It should be fun. Obviously more than 11,000 kids from the local Hamilton area expected to be in attendance at this game at Tim Hortons Field. So it'll be a boisterous atmosphere, maybe a higher pitched atmosphere than we're normally used to at Tim Hortons Field. But I'm sure no less energetic, especially at that time in the morning. Later that night, it's a long day of football, I suppose, for us because later that night it will be Cavalry and the Vancouver Whitecaps. Mitchell, tell me what you're looking forward to in this one because again, two teams that have met several times in recent memory, and Cavalry looking to get back to the success they had in their first meeting with the Whitecaps.
Yeah, I think so important. We mentioned the importance of the win over Vancouver to Cavalry's CPL campaign, but just so important for this as well to get that win and to get that big confidence boost coming in, especially at home where they've been fantastic regardless of the competition over the years. And that's what they were missing earlier in the year in CONCACAF Champions Cup was that true home leg. Obviously, they had to go to
Yeah.
Starlight Stadium to take on Orlando. They get to host the Whitecaps at home at ATCO Field. That's what I'm really looking forward to is seeing what they can do in that first leg and seeing how the quality that we know they have translates onto their own home pitch.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. A game that they've wanted continuously for a while. Cavalry have had success in the Canadian Championship. They've been pretty far in it. They've beaten the Whitecaps, but maybe not in particularly recent years. They have wanted this two-legged tie against the Whitecaps again, and I think it's going to be a very very exciting one. Obviously a couple others in the Canadian Championship this week. The all CPL matchup, Atletico Ottawa and Pacific. Mitch, these are two teams that looked at this bracket before the season and said, "Man, we could get all the way to the semifinals before we have to play an MLS team." And at that point, you're 2 legs away from playing in the final.
Mhm.
Uh, how much priority do you think both Pacific and Ottawa are going to put on this game? And then how fun is it going to be? Because these are two teams that, as we mentioned earlier, are tied at the top of the Canadian Premier League table.
Yeah, I think it is going to be exciting. I mean, what's going to be interesting almost for both these sides is this is the biggest test we've seen both of them have so far.
Mhm.
I mean, if you look at who they've played eighth, seventh, sixth, and fifth in the CPL table, and obviously we've
Yeah,
talked about Cavalry. We expect them to be higher than that at the end of the season, but that's where they sit right now. So this is a test for both sides. For Pacific, it's them leaving really well they went to Cavalry, but this is their first big road trip of the season. How do
Mhm.
they perform away from home? They scored a lot away from home last season. They set a CPL record actually, and they scored a lot in the nation's capital last year. So that'll be interesting to see. But yeah, I'm excited to see what these two sides do under pressure, which we haven't necessarily seen in a significant way so far this season.
Yeah, it's a perfect defense coming up against a team that just scored 7 goals in a game. So that could be fun. And realistically, if you'd said to me before the start of the season, or maybe like at some point last season, that we were gonna have an Ottawa Pacific matchup where one team hadn't conceded a goal and the other team had just scored 7, I would not have said it was
Yeah,
these two
would
in
have
that
flipped
order.
them, right? Yeah.
I absolutely would have flipped them. But anyway, that's the way things go in the Canadian Premier League. You can never be sure. One other game in the quarterfinals, obviously doesn't involve a Canadian Premier League team for quite evident reasons. If you were watching OneSoccer on Thursday night, if you didn't see it, Halifax Wanderers and CS Saint Laurent, the champions of Ligue 1 Quebec. What a game that was, Mitchell. 2-2. Obviously Halifax scoring the equalizer late, and then just the penalties though. Saint Laurent looked so dialed in, just so focused, and scoring all 5 penalties on the road at the Wanderers grounds. That was excuse me. I was hoping to get to the end of the sentence and let you start before I sneeze, but I didn't get there. Mitchell, how special a night was that for football in Quebec and for CS Saint Laurent, a semi-pro team, to beat the Canadian Premier League side?
Oh yeah, it was incredible. Even the way they did it, like the fight back, to be able to yeah, just have the composure to win on penalties as well. We saw the Rovers get there against Pacific and weren't able to see it out. So for Saint Laurent to be able to do that, and yeah, they fully deserved it as well. Fantastic performance, and that's what they're going to take into this game against Toronto FC, as they've absolutely deserved to be there. And again, it's something that reigns big in all of these I guess, underdog matchups, is you get that first leg at home. You get to host Toronto FC to kind of your house, and you get to see what you can do from that. And that's something that I'm really looking forward to in this matchup.
Yeah, it should be a lot of fun. Obviously, TFC already played a semi-pro team in this tournament in Simcoe County Rovers, but that was just the one game at BMO Field. I think things could be a little bit different when they have to go all the way on the road to Montreal and play Saint Laurent there. Definitely a game where sometimes you might overlook it a little bit, maybe not bring a full squad, and then you put yourself in a hole heading back into the home leg. Anyway, just to quickly recap the schedule for these first leg games this week. Forge CF Montreal Tuesday morning, 11 a.m. Eastern at Tim Hortons Field. Followed later that night, Cavalry, Vancouver Whitecaps on Tuesday, 7 p.m. Mountain Time, 9 Eastern, 6 Pacific. Everybody's involved here. Every time zone. Get it on. Atletico Ottawa Pacific on Wednesday night, 7 o'clock Eastern at TD Place, and at the exact same time, CS Saint Laurent will be taking on Toronto FC at Complexe Sportif Claude Robillard in Montreal, again at 7 o'clock. 4 games, all on OneSoccer, obviously. And then after that is done, we have another weekend of Canadian Premier League action. Benedict Rhodes the scoreboard, or the schedule board up here so that I can remember it. York United back at home on Friday night against Valour at 7 Eastern. Halifax at home against Cavalry on Saturday. That's going to be at 3 o'clock local in Halifax. Later that evening, Pacific hosting Forge, 2 o'clock Pacific time, 5 o'clock Eastern. And then on Sunday, it's Vancouver and Atletico Ottawa at 4 o'clock Pacific, 7 o'clock Eastern. All right, we are running a little bit long, but we do have some stoppage time here. So without further ado, the part that certainly Benedict himself has been waiting for, but all of us, of course, Benedict Rhodes is going to come in here and fire us with some mailbag and listener questions. So Benedict, take it away, sir.
Yeah, I'll start with Duncan on Twitter, who asked, speaking of that game on Wednesday night, Pacific and Ottawa are on 10 points each, but who has been the most impressive so far in 2024?
I'm going to say Ottawa.
Okay. And
I'll
go
Ottawa. You can make the case for Pacific in a second. I'm going to go Ottawa because I just feel like there's a little bit more clicking in the final third for them. Obviously, they maybe haven't felt. I don't know if their defense has had to do as much as Pacific's has, and certainly, obviously, hasn't been perfect as Pacific has. But I think I'm just a little bit more impressed with how how entertaining Ottawa have been, and how quickly so many of these players that brought in, and that we knew were big names or were talented players, but didn't know how they'd quite fit in. But it already feels quite natural for a lot of these guys to be Atletico Ottawa players. For Debrienne, for Didic, for Aparicio to be part of this team, I think they've all fit in very quickly, and it's been very impressive to see, them starting to establish themselves as a team to beat in the CPL. But Mitch, tell me what impresses you about Pacific.
Well, for me, we've been talking about what Ottawa gained this offseason, and everything around Pacific's been, what they lost. Didic, Aparicio, that's been kind of the talking point. And to still be tied at the top of the table, to have not conceded a single goal, to be finding an identity and still finding ways to get wins, especially at home, I think that's incredibly impressive. And they've impressed me so far this year.
It's a great point. We can you kind of sold me, but we can't agree on everything in this podcast. So I have to.
That would make the show boring.
Exactly. I have to stand by what I said. All right, Benny. Shoot.
I think one thing we can all agree on is that those guys, Aparicio and Didic, are definitely going to show up on Wednesday night against their former team. The next one comes from Corey on Instagram, keeping it positive. He says, "What's going right for Valour at the moment? Obviously, 5 games, 5 losses so far to start the season, but what are maybe some of the positives they can build on?"
I think there's some individual players who have stepped up. Jordan Faria has, shown some real moments of quality. Same with Temi Antonoglu. So I think, again, it's like 45 kind of moments like that. They've been able to put together some really good halves. Jordy Swibel's another player who I think deserves mention for the work rate up top. But yeah, it just hasn't gone together. But we're keeping it positive. I think there has been some players who have stepped in and shown they are, I think above average CPL players.
Yeah, the Forge game they played was probably the best they've played this year. Deserve more out of that. Another positive for Valour is that they are a little bit undermanned. There are reinforcements coming. Tas Mordekudis came off the bench on Sunday. He's going to get back in the side. Roberto Alicon is going to get healthier and come back into the side. I believe Raphael Ohin is quite close to playing as well for this team. So there are reinforcements and players that are still to come into this side that can make an impact. So I think once maybe they do get a little bit healthier, maybe they have some time to breathe, I do think that there are going to be moments for Valour to turn this around.
Chris on Twitter asks, which players from the League One teams you saw in the Canadian Championship preliminary round should be playing in the CPL? So maybe to rephrase it, which players sort of impressed you the most, I guess, through those first couple of games?
Yeah, there's a few in everyone. I mean, the game that I watched the most closely because I was there was Simcoe County at TFC, and although that was the most lopsided of all of them, I think that Orlandis Benitez should be in a CPL training session now. We saw how talented he is, and he's not, he's a player with a good story. Has been, I think, on Forge's books before with a development contract. I think that he could do a lot of work as a kind of attacking midfielder. He scored, I think, 15 goals in League One Ontario last year, so definitely could help out a team. But there are definitely a lot of players, especially at CS Saint Laurent, I think, as well, right, Mitchell?
Well, yeah, another player who's been scoring for fun, and a player we've seen in the Canadian Premier League before with multiple sides, Mamadou Kane. Sorry, wow. He's he was fantastic in that match. That was a proving point match for him. The composure to, unlike maybe another Kane, step up and score both of his penalties.
That's for you, Benny. That's for you, Benny.
Yeah. Benny is not so happy with me right now. He's checking his headphones to see. No, I'm just kidding. I thought he was great. And I think he proved that he should be deserving of another CPL contract, in the next few years.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, TSS Rovers as well. Matteo Polisi, we've seen what he can do in the CPL, and we've seen him do very, very well for Rovers in the Canadian Championship 2 years in a row now. So, again, another player that deserves an opportunity. All right, Mitchell or Benedict, do we have one more question?
One more comes from Benedict Rhodes at CamPL Dossier, who wants to know this match on Friday night, York and Valour, I believe, is the 500th CPL match, we think.
That's true.
What is your favorite moment from the first 499 CPL matches?
Oh,
Wow.
that's tough.
That is so tough, Benedict, because I wish you'd given me a brief heads up. Is it See, I'm torn between picking like a hilarious moment and picking like something that was actually really cool.
Here's
But
a couple.
yeah, I gotta give you something. But there's just been so many funny moments.
I'm just letting Charlie vamp here. This is great.
No, Mitchell, you clearly got one, so go.
I think you have to go Tristan Borges Olympico extra time. Like that's just that's like it's just one of those moments where you still can't believe it happened, like in a final at that moment. Just that extra time in general, to be honest. Like if I can have that extra time in general, like to have 3 goals of that quality so quick together in front of a fantastic crowd, like that was the best football that we've seen in the CPL, and yeah, just top quality.
Yeah, that was wicked. I'm also thinking of just seeing the crowd at the CPL final in Ottawa the year before. It was 15,000 people in a very packed looking stadium. I was standing on a pitch and it looked insane and genuinely surreal that was that many people there to watch a Canadian Premier League match. But there are so many lore moments in this league that have happened over the years. Like Matthew Arnone getting sent off for kicking a corner flag was an awesome one. All the times that the Valour tableau wore at different numbers in his first year with Ottawa because he kept giving his shirts away. There's been so many, and I think we're gonna try and highlight a few more of these on the website this week. But it's just been so special watching the first 500 games of this league, and it's very exciting to get to this milestone and to know that it's only going to get better from here. Right, Benny? Do you have a favorite moment?
Mine must be the inaugural game. Just there's years of wanting a league here in Canada, and then April 27th, 2019, we finally got it, and seeing I think it was 17,000 I think that day in Hamilton, and seeing York fans traveling to Forge as well, and the occasion around that game was pretty special.
Yeah, absolutely. Anyway, thank you very, very much, Benedict, and thank you for everybody who has sent in questions to the CPL Newsroom presented by Volkswagen this week. Obviously, we will be back next week, so if you've got anything else that you is burning on your mind that you want us to address because nobody else can or is brave enough to do so, get in touch. Get in touch on Instagram, on Twitter, on Facebook, by carrier pigeon, whatever is your preferred method of communication. And we will be seeing you a lot more this week and the week after as the Canadian Championship and the Canadian Premier League continue. So thank you very much, Mitchell, for joining us. Thank you, Benedict, for running the show behind and in front of the scenes here in the show. And again, thank you very much, everybody, for watching. And we will see you next time.
Trafford is off to the races. Trafford into the box. He takes the shot, and Charlie Trafford has picked it runs on one and more. The post and in. Yavientinoro makes it 2-0. And they do go to the top of the table.